I want us to so on behalf of Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria Kwara State Branch, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's Committee of Practice meeting. I am deeply honored to be here with you to welcome our distinguished professionals in human resource and our invited guests representing medicine, law, and accounting. So I also appreciate our national leadership for their continued support, and thank this CIPM planning team for putting this together this afternoon. So the essence of today's team, HR at the intersection of professional, is a simple yet powerful team. In every organization, people remain the common denominator of success. While the lawyer safeguards our health, while the medical doctor safeguards our health, the medical practitioner protects our legal integrity, and the accountant ensures financial prudence. So HR stands right at the intersection, connecting these different worlds into one shared purpose. So HR's role in aligning human potential with organizational goals, when the various professionals work together under the same roof, each comes with their own expertise, vocabulary, and priorities. So we are all here together to ensure that these different priorities do not exist in silos, but rather complement one another. So we are here to have insights into how we can align all these different professionals together for us to achieve the organizational success. So today's conversation will remind us that while our disciplines may wear different uniforms, we all walk the same corridors towards a common destination, which is the organizational success. At that busy intersection where our 5 minutes, HR acts as a traffic controller, guiding people, processes, and potential so that no one's effort is lost, and every professional effort moves us forward together. So that is why we are here to rub minds and see how we can foster organizational success. So I will now hand over to the moderator for him to continue this conversation. So thank you, Dr. Oluyemi Adeosun, for accepting to be the host for COP. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairman. Thank you so much, Mrs. Azizat. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I must say a very warm, pleasant good afternoon first to our colleagues who are seated. I can see us all looking radiant, glorious. Thank you so much for coming today. Also, I must say thank you to our distinguished panelists, from Barrister Emmanuel Abraye to Mrs. Alimat Raji to Professor Adeyinka Adeniran. And I'll also thank very cordially all the individuals who have joined us online and those who will join. Again, permit me to thank the leadership of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, and I also like to thank the Secretariat, the National Secretariat, irrespective of whether they are domiciled in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. Thank you so much for what you do for our practice, our profession. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and I'll be moderating this very insightful session, working closely with our distinguished panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, very quickly and very briefly,
Sorry, moderator.
Yes, please.
Sorry, moderator. Please, I would like to give the convener of the COP sometimes give a remarks.
Fantastic, fantastic. She can go ahead, please.
Okay. Dr. Mrs. Famro, please let me unmute her. Dr. Mrs. Famro, Christiana Famro.
Yes, she can unmute and speak now.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to be here. And I appreciate everybody who is around and even those who planned this and distinguished panelists who have honored this branch with their resources. It's a great pleasure for us to be here. I wish that there will be more of our people here, and I know that they would be joining us. As HR practitioners, one of our hallmarks is every time three o'clock is 3 o'clock HR time, and so I'm sure that they will be joining us. I just want to say that this is I'm happy that the chairman, who is the manager of the community of practice for the branch, has taken this forward. This has been we started this as in like I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm happy that it's starting to overcome its initial teething problems and issues, and so I'm sure that we can only go higher from here. I think we all understand what communities of practice is. I don't need to begin to explain it to this audience. I just want to underline the importance and emphasize the importance of this community of practice as a gap bridger, to bridging gaps among professions, so that professionals, because professionals tend to operate in silos and they are very good in what they do. They are very good and knowledgeable and conversant in practice and in theory in their areas. But today, today we are talking about being versatile and not just reskilling, multi-skilling, and being able to traverse professions, because things just like the world is global, professions are becoming also global. And the one thing that helps to bridge these silos, whether among organizations, within organizations, or between organizations, is the HR practice. And for some time we have moved from the old practice of HR. We're looking at strategic and transformational to ensure that organizational goals, and it's gone beyond organizational goals, community goals, international goals, national and international goals, global goals are being achieved, and we are facilitating it, so that although we are a branch or a national body, we think global, but we act local. We ensure that our practice are so that this is why this is so important. I'm so happy that we have people, cutting edge people, as our leadership and our leadership in the branch, who have thought through this and are bringing these capable people, enlightened people, these erudite scholars and practitioners, to enlighten our practice and enlarge our coast. So that's what I would say, unless there is anything that invites my attention, requires my attention. I just want to thank everybody for honoring us, and to kind of just apologize on behalf of our membership. I can't see many of them here already. That we appreciate you. We appreciate you. So Thank you so much. I wish us fruitful deliberations and insightful contributions. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you so much, madam. Thank you so much for those wise counsel, wise insight. Thanks so much. I appreciate you. And I think that's a morale booster. The purpose has been established. The intent has been established. The direction has also been provided. Before I proceed, I'd like to know, Madam Branch Chair, do you still have any comments or any remarks post the opening comments of the convener? All right. So I'll take that as a go ahead.
I think she's muted.
Technically she's not from our hand here. She's not muted from our hand here, as far as we can see. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So I think we'll just continue. Of course, if we need to, bring her up at any time, we'll always do that. We are flexible. We are family here, and we can improvise, and so that we can also take advantage of time. I'll very quickly read the profile of our facilitators. In case I don't read everything, it is intentional because I'm trying to abridge so that we can make the best use of our time. We always say ladies first. That's why I'm going to start with the only lady on the panel today. Mrs. Alimat Raji has over 2 decades of experience in the financial services and energy industries in various roles, including strategy, accounting, governance, risk, compliance, credit control, budget, and financial reporting. She's a strategic leader who has a proven track record in investment decision-making and driving growth across diverse portfolios and delivering impactful results. She's also a visionary leader with a keen interest in leveraging financial acumen to empower business and foster sustainable growth, as she has demonstrated in her various capacities in several multinational organizations, including but not limited to Access Bank PLC, Total Energies, Toronto Dominion Bank, Canada. Alimat has a bachelor's degree in accounting from University of Ilorin. Can somebody say better by far, please? And she's an alumnus of the Global Executive MBA in Finance of the Manchester Business School. She's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, member of the ACCA UK, and she's a certified professional accountant with Ontario, Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's welcome, with some applause, Alimat Raji. Alimat, please take a bow or just wave.
Thank you very much.
Just
It's
a
a
gesture.
pleasure to be here this morning. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Very quickly, I'll go to our next distinguished panelist in the person of Professor Dr. Adeyinka Adeniran. I call him Professor Doctor because he's a medical doctor and he's also a professor. In case that's not conventional usage, please take me as I am. Professor Dr. Adeyinka Adeniran is a distinguished professor of community medicine at Lagos State University College of Medicine, LASUCOM, and the Teaching Hospital, LASUT, with over 20 years of impactful contributions to public health education, research, and policy in Nigeria. He is a proud alumnus of the University of Ilorin. Can I hear better by far, please? Where he earned his MBBS in 2003. Dr. Adeniran furthered his practice in public health with an MSc from the University of Lagos in 2010. He holds a fellowship in public health from the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria 2011 and is a member of the West African College of Physicians 2008. Additionally, he completed a certificate course in healthcare financing from the Institute of Public Health at the University of Heidelberg, Germany. Dr. Adeniran's research interests focus on critical issues in healthcare systems, developing economic countries, particularly improving access to quality healthcare while safeguarding users from financial catastrophe. He has authored and co-authored over 60 peer-reviewed journal articles and is a prolific speaker at national international conferences addressing topics such as universal health coverage, healthcare systems strengthening. His work has also garnered multiple recognition, including the prestigious Dr. Peter Odili Prize for Best Research Projects in Health Management. Beyond the academia, he serves as a director at Shaw Diagnostics, Hopestone Healthcare, and PG Consulting, advocating for holistic healthcare access. He is married and blessed with children. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's welcome with applause Professor Adeyinka Adeniran. Please take a bow, sir. All right. Last but not the least, we have Barrister Emmanuel Abraye. That's why I'm introducing him last. I don't know if he understands the proverb I just dropped, but he should just forgive me. We are forgiving everybody now. Emmanuel Abraye is a policy and compensation advisor at Renaissance Africa Energy Company Limited, formerly Shell Petroleum Development Company Limited. He joined Shell as an employee and industrial relations advisor. Prior to joining Shell, Emmanuel was a senior associate with Dispute Resolution and Labor Employment Practice Group at AELEX. He was called to the Nigerian bar in 2015 and has amassed significant experience in civil litigation, labor and employment advisory, employment, employee engagement, and industrial relations. Again, before now, Emmanuel frequently represented employers, employees, and unions in defining labor and employee relations litigation at the National Industrial Court of Nigeria, Court of Appeal, as well as the African Union Administrative Tribunal. He has also handled commercial litigations in Nigerian High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court. His labor and employment dispute experience encompasses cases including wrongful termination, severance pay, exit benefit, bullying, harassment, victimization, redundancies, labor union rights, labor union elections, occupational injuries, among others. He has successfully instituted, prosecuted, and defended claims on behalf of corporate and individuals. He has also handled commercial disputes, instituting, prosecuting, defending claims on behalf of multinationals and international oil companies. Ladies and gentlemen, Emmanuel was a co-contributing author to the Nigerian chapter of the Employment Law Review, a UK-based publication in 2022. He has also contributed to a number of periodic updates on varied spectrum of labor and employment law, including with Square Patterns Box, an online publication on labor. Emmanuel regularly speaks at events and radio shows, including the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, The Office. The Office is our radio program, CIPM radio program, and you can listen to it on Lagos Talks 91.3 FM. It's a weekly program. And also, he has spoken multiple times on the prestigious HR Mentorship Learning Series for professionals. Emmanuel was ranked very recently as a national leader in labor and employment by Who is Who Legal in independent research with clients and peers in both 2023 and 2024. Emmanuel is a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, Employment and Labor Lawyers Association of Nigeria, African Labor Law, and the International Bar Association. He has also served as a member of the committee of the Nigerian Bar Association, Employment, Labor, Industrial Relations Committee, and also committee with the Nigerian Bar Association on Business Law. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited, delighted, elated to present to us Barrister Emmanuel Abraye. Please, let's welcome him. Barrister, this is not the first question, but at this rate, you have to come and join CIPM.
Definitely.
And join us through practitioners' route or
No problem.
route. I'm available to guide you personally.
No problem,
right?
sir. I'll do just that.
You are part of us. You are part of us. Okay,
Thank you
ladies
very
and
much, sir.
gentlemen, we will start, we will continue. We've started at 3 o'clock. We'll just continue. And I always like this slogan, ladies first, because it makes it easy to know where to start any conversation or how to start anything for that matter, especially if it is to contribute money. We also say ladies first. Madam Alimat Raji, you will be responding very briefly. to the first question. From your professional background, how does your field, which is accounting, among others, how does it add value to HR practice in organizations?
Okay, thank you very much, moderator. Good afternoon, everyone. It's morning on my side here. So good day, everyone, wherever you are in the world. I'm happy to be in your midst this afternoon. It feels like homecoming for me, really. Born and bred in Ilorin before, went to Lagos for my service, worked there before I came to Canada in 2021. So I feel like I'm amongst my people. So thank you for the invite. Okay, so to your question, how accounting and HR relate to each other. Looking at the topic, the question will be like, okay, HR is about the people, accounting is about the numbers. So just on the surface, it might be difficult to, see how they both align. Accounting and HR are both recognized as support, services to the core business areas for organizations, and they are usually regarded as cost centers. So, sometimes the focus is always on the core business areas, but accounting as a profession, they work with the senior leadership to design the strategy and direction for the organization. So we usually have like 20-year strategic document, 10-year strategic document that will work, designed with senior leadership to, chart the cost of action for the organization. And so because accounting is, the driver for this strategy, they are really aware of where the organization is going. And so they work with the strategic document to, determine the budget, seasonalize the strategy into yearly budgets. So right about now, organizations are working on their 2026 budget, almost finalizing, the budget. And of course, they work with HR, during the budget process. So, because they are familiar with the strategy numbers and, they'll be able to guide HR initiatives and see how best, to get management buy-in for this, initiatives that HR will want to put forward. Like I said earlier, HR is seen as a cost center, and it's sometimes, quite difficult to, measure the financial impact to the organization in the future, because it's not something that will come in the immediate, to the organization as immediate benefit to the organization. So this is where finance comes in to help HR, determine the financial impact of, the HR initiatives and how it's going to benefit, the organization in the short and long term. So when we talk about strategic workforce planning, accounting works with HR, as accounting is familiar with the strategy, the growth plans that the organization will have. This will be translated, into workforce needs, and that will help HR to, plan accordingly. So in terms of the recruitment needs, so for example, if there's going to be like projected growth in the next, 3 to 5 years, HR will start, working with maybe like their talent pool in terms of hiring initiative to see where is the best place to source for talent that we will need in the next, 2 to 3 years. So these are, that's one way that accounting works with HR. And another area where accounting aligns with HR is in terms of payroll accuracy and compliance. There is a lot of tax laws that accountants are familiar with that need to be implemented when coming up with the payroll. So we work a lot together with HR in this aspect to ensure compliance with the tax laws and the to ensure that the numbers are correct and the organization doesn't face any fine for non-compliance in the future. So accounting provides the basis for strategic decision making, operational efficiency, and for value and for measuring value that HR is bringing to the organization.
Thank you so much. That was very insightful, very apt, well encapsulated. I'll quickly go to Professor Adeyinka Adeniro. And my question will be, how do medical professionals generally, okay, how do you contribute to HR initiatives around employee health, wellness, and safety? Thank you.
All right, so thank you so much, Moderator Doles, and good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to my fellow panelists as well. So straight to your question, how does medical practice relate with HR practice? I mean, when we talk about HR, we are looking at human resource. And that's the greatest resource, or that's the greatest asset of every organization. Now, that asset also has the greatest asset, which is their health. Okay, so you don't have HR if they don't have their health. Okay, so that is the foundation of productivity. Whatever you want to do, you must first have your health. I mean, a simple malaria will keep you at home, you will not be able to do anything. And that's the reason why, no matter what you are planning, if you are not looking at healthcare management or the healthcare management of your human resource, then the planning will fall flat. So the medical practice is there to provide that support for the HR practitioners to make sure that, one, when they are looking at benefit package, for example, health should be at the core of it, okay? Because that is the most important asset anybody can have. And when we talk about health, we are not just talking about physical health. I mean, health is a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being of a person, and not merely absence of disease or infirmity. So that's the WHO definition of health. So sometimes when you look at somebody and you think the person is healthy, the person may not actually be healthy. There's what we call absenteeism in your space. That means when somebody is sick and is absent from work. But there's also what we call presenteeism. So the person is present, but he's not present. Okay, so the person is not really adding any value because of maybe mental health issues, social health issues, or physical health issues. So that's where medical practice comes to add value to HR. So when you are designing your benefit package, which I think is one of the most important aspects of HR management, you have to look at, working with occupational health experts to look at how to really have a robust health management plan included. Number two is wellness programs in the workplace. That is also extremely, extremely important, because you don't want to wait until people fall sick before you start say, oh, okay, go and see a doctor now, and so on and so forth. You want to pay attention a lot to preventive practices, health promotion, because that's actually cheaper for the organization. We are looking at ways to cut costs for the organization. So that's extremely cheap for the organization. So, and in designing any wellness program in the workplace, you need the expertise of medical practitioners to do that. Okay, so that's also very, very important. And then, of course, there are other areas, including safety, occupational health legislation and regulations. So we also bring our expertise in those areas. Psychological support is another area. Of course, That's part of any wellness program that you are looking at. So I will just summarize by saying that health is at the foundation of anything we are doing as an HR, because if your people don't have their health, you don't have them. So we have to find a way to work together to provide that support for the HR sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor, for sharing that with us. I'll move very quickly to Barrister. Barrister Emmanuel, how does your profession help HR develop stronger organizational policies and procedures? Okay. And how do you also help support HR in ensuring compliance with labor laws, regulations, and ethical standards? I know it's a mouthful, but you're capable, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adeosun. I'm almost feeling bad that I did not attend University of Ilorin. If I could rewind, maybe I would, so that I can also be, so I can be shouting better by far.
Yes, sir.
But I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here today. I should start by apologizing that I'm casually dressed. It's because I'm on vacation, and I honestly, this is one of those things that happens when you forget to pack for a particular event, and it was until today I realized that I didn't pack for this event, and I'm so sorry about that. Please just take me as I am. To go to the question that has been asked, you see, I've always advocated for every HR department to have a legal practitioner in-house, not just a legal practitioner, a labor and employment lawyer, someone who understands and has the technical expertise with labor and employment laws. And the reason is very simple. Everything tracks back to the legal basis for what you're doing, right? And if you're going to design policies and you're going to design procedures, and those procedures on the face of it are just, you know, evidence of bad practice, you have certain things that, look good to the eyes, but are actually dated practices that would not withstand current legal scrutinies, you will then find that you've prepared your organization for disaster from the word go, right? So I can give quite a number of examples, right? The world is even moving beyond what nations have set as national standards for labor and employment. You now have a situation where there are international labor standards that are being set by the Committee of States, and they are agreeing to bind themselves to these international labor standards. And then you then have a situation where, you know, your HR practice does not comply with those standards. Now, it's really a lawyer that would help you do that, a labor and employment expert, to be very straightforward about that. So, how does the legal profession help HR develop stronger organizational policies? It's simple. We already have the body of laws that have laid down, the standards that must be followed, the procedures that must be followed. The policy is one thing, and procedure is another thing. And all of these things have legal standards that have been laid down to be followed, by your organizations, right? So this is what the legal community brings to the table. We draft processes, policies that ensure that your company is risk free. you know Risk mitigation is at the heart of what legal practitioners do. It's sometimes you maybe this is of course, but you want to get a property, and then you reach out to a lawyer to help you do what is called due diligence. And then when he's done, you sit down and you ask yourself, why did I not see these things, at the time I was, looking at this document? How come my mind did not go to some of these things that, are now pointed out by the legal practitioner as risks? It's because the legal practitioner is trained to identify those risks, right? So from the start point of your process to delivery, the legal practitioner knows what should be there and what should not be there, right? So this is what the legal practice brings to the table. So for instance, sometimes, because many people have watched a lot of home videos, And when we watch these home videos, we hear things like, you're fired, pack your bags and get out of my office. And someone thinks that, they can actually do that in real life because you saw it in a home video. Now, if you do that, that is serious legal risk for your company. In fact, once you terminate someone like that, we call it wrongful termination. And if you do that in a government institution, it's unlawful termination, because there are processes that are laid down to be followed to effect a termination, right? And you know the legal practitioners just bring out all of these things to ensure fair work practices within the workplace, to cancel out things like unfair labor practices, to ensure that things are done the way they should be done. Of course, I don't want to sing too highly of my profession, but the truth is, and I don't want to say next to doctors, because I don't want Professor Deniro to say that I said that, but lawyers, I mean, the legal profession has you know a very solid place in organizational success. If you want to also, if I should branch out to ethics and compliance, like Dr. Adeosun has prompted, you know all of those things in ensuring that, and all of these go hand in hand, right? Even with finance, because some of the times, financial misappropriations within the company boils back to what ethics and compliance processes have been set as a standard by the compliance team in your organization. Now, the compliance team in your organization, I mean, and those of you who do resourcing can also confirm that most compliance teams are headed or manned by legal practitioners, right? Because they are the ones who will do the investigation. Sometimes things are not just apparent because someone has said something. There has to be someone who would dig deeper to investigate and unearth the truth, right? Legal practitioners do this because they are trained in cross-examination. It's one thing for you to say ABC. The legal practitioner can go deeper to show you how what you have said confidently is actually untrue, and to poke all the holes. And so, you have all of these things that the legal profession brings into HR, that helps HR be what they ought to be. So again, I would continue advocating. Dr. Adeosun knows that this is my major advocacy. Ensure there's a legal, not just a lawyer, a labor and employment skilled lawyer in your HR, to ensure that your practices are updated, your policies are updated, your procedures are proper, and your entire organization is compliant with international labor standards. Thank you, Dr. Adeosun. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Barrister Emmanuel Abraye. I chuckled when you used that expression. Some people have watched too much on video, because in some part of Nigeria here, of course, I'm proud to say, not with CIPM members. We have a lot of owner-manager businesses who sometimes don't even have any HR professional at all. So it can be anybody or the owner himself. So they actually say you are fired. you know, Literally speaking, on a lighter note. But that was a well thought out. Thank you for sharing with us so graciously, copiously from your wealth of experience. We do not take it for granted. I'll quickly switch over to Ontario, Canada, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll be posing my next question to Madam Alimat Raji. Mrs., please, what unique strengths or perspective does your profession, accounting generally, bring that can enrich HR strategy and execution? In other words, what can we learn as HR professionals? What insights can we pick from accounting? We don't want to be like you. We want to be better than you. Over to you now.
Yeah, okay. we all need to work together, really. We all bring our unique, perspectives to help the organization grow. And looking at what we accountants do, we tend to, document historical costs and, keep records of, everything that is going on in the organization in terms of the numbers. And with that, we use it to analyze trend. We spot inefficiencies because we do a lot of analysis. We do a lot of, financial statement analysis, looking at the relationship between, the P&L and the balance sheet, for instance. So we use that, to spot inefficiencies, to determine whether there is, growth or stagnation. And of course, we also do forecasting. So for example, when I was at Total Energies, as a listed company, we used to submit quarterly forecast to the Securities and Exchange Commission, looking at the market conditions, looking at how, the economy is going and how it impacts the business. We're required to submit like quarterly forecast so that the investors can know, what is going on. And, this analytical skills and, ability to forecast is something that can also be that HR professionals can also adopt for workforce planning, maybe for compensation modeling, and turnover analysis. So these are skills that HR professionals can also do. Look at the trends and spot inefficiencies, and that will help with their planning and forecasting, employee needs, hiring needs, and plan for employee turnover accordingly. Another unique strength that accountants have, is their skill and know-how on how to align resources with strategic budgets. And any HR initiative live and die by the budget. If management or finance team say you don't have adequate budget for this, it can't pull through. Whether it's any compensation plan or wellness initiatives that like I said earlier, it doesn't show directly on the financial statement. Accountants know how to align those resources and include them in the budget, that HR budget. So this will allow them to ensure that they are able to implement the HR plans and policies that they have. So another skill that accountants have is financial discipline. Like if there is going to be expenses that is outside the budget, that's going to make that's going to go above the budget, there needs to be like a special approval and justification needed from senior leadership before you can go ahead with those expenses. And so it would really help HR if they also imbibe this financial discipline, even before, going ahead to, thinking about these initiatives. It becomes a part of them that, oh, I need to get approval for this. Do I have the budget for this? Will I be able, do I really absolutely need to incur these expenses? So if it's, internalized into, HR processes, it also makes life easier for everyone, for the HR that will also need to, for the accounting that will also need to justify, the budget to senior leadership to, approve. It makes life, easy for everyone. And, this skill will help HR to design strategies that are not only visionary, but also viable for the organization. So data-driven decision making, it's a skill that accountants have, and also strategic cost management. These are skills that HR can also benefit from accounting. Thank you.
All right, I'll throw one question to you quickly, Alaja. This is off the cuff, trust me, but don't trust me. Can you tell me one or two things we HR people do to you accountant that frustrate you generally, that you would like us to change?
Well, maybe it might be other way around, like, the way accountants, like during the budget process, there is a lot of back and forth, with cost centers especially. And it's always, very difficult, for us to convince you why you need to reduce your budget or how it's not aligning with the, strategic goal. And, you know, cost cutting is always number one on management priority, because, you know, these are the things that we kind of have control over. You know, revenue, yes, we can market, you know, but you can't force people to buy your product. What we have control over is the cost. And so it's always, you know, a hassle trying to convince, you know, our HR partners on why they need to, you know, reduce the cost or look for better ways of achieving their HR strategic objective, look for, you know, maybe cheaper ways and more efficient ways. So it's always a challenge, you know, going back and forth. And yeah, we work together to achieve that, but it's always a struggle. Moderator, are you there? I think the moderator is off. Okay, it's back.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You know that when you mentioned cost cutting, one thing that came to my mind was training, learning and development. Sometimes it's one of the aspects of human resources that really takes the cut. I would like to quickly move swiftly to Professor Adeyinka Adeniran so that he can also weigh in and, you know, provide some thoughts along some of these beautiful things we are talking about. Doctor, can you share some examples on how your profession, you know, has enhanced HR's ability to achieve organizational goals, you know?
All right, thank you so much, moderator. Of course, like I said initially, if you have your goals, you need your human resource to achieve the goal, and the human resource need their health to achieve that goal. So let me give you specific examples. So for example, in lawsuit, I'm going to give just one or two examples. We have done in lawsuit and then in some other organizations. I think there was a time where we had two of our staff just slumped and died. Of course, it wasn't really during the work period, but of course they were at work, went home, and then the news came, and then it was quite devastating. And then the management, you know, called and said, okay, what exactly is the wellness plan that we have for our staff? What exactly do we do to really help the people? Of the teaching hospital or the lawsuit before, we have what we call operational health and wellness center for the hospital. But there was no program. There was no wellness program that was in place to educate people about their health, even though it was an hospital. You know, sometimes within the hospital, you just felt that everybody is okay. But you also have human resource in the hospital. We call them human resource for health. Okay, and they also need management. They need to be well managed, you know, to enhance their productivity, to manage their stress level, and so on and so forth, because they are even more under stress than most of other people in other professions. You know, so we came up with a wellness program, you know, wide across to educate people on what we call silent killers. Okay, and I think that was this was about 5 years ago. And since then, even though, I mean, we're talking to doctors, nurses, and all of that, which we thought they should know better, you know, but we still have to institute that. That's one. And then we also did what they call periodic medical check. Now, for any HR, when you are bringing in people, you also need to know their state of health so that you'll be able to know whether they'll be able to do what you want to hire them for or not. So there are medical checks that are supposed to be done. The first one is what we call pre-employment health screening. So even before you employ anybody, you're supposed to do that. Now in lawsuit, of course, they will do that. But it's not just enough to do pre-employment. Okay, there are certain things to know whether this person will fit into this work or not. So, for example, if you employ someone and the person is asthmatic, you discover during pre-employment assessment that the person is asthmatic, you are not supposed to put that person where there are dust and all those kind of things that will trigger attack, for that person. So the medical unit will advise the HR appropriately that this person cannot work here, but it can work here. So that's where you now do what we call pre-placement. Okay, so the person, does it fit to work? Okay, if the answer is yes, is the person fit to work in a certain place, in a certain department, or yes or no? So that's where we also do pre-placement health assessment. And then you don't also stop at that, okay? Because even if you do that, in the course of work, the person might have picked one or two problems in the process. So then you have to do what we call periodic, which is usually annual. Some are 6 monthly. So periodic, medical assessment. And that was what we started doing in last Sudan. And the incidence of people slumming and dying in the process reduced, absenteeism reduced a bit, and so on and so forth. So those are specific initiatives that we put on the table, especially in our own environment, which made a lot of difference. And then from research, from published work, we've also seen that if you have, for example, a wellness initiative put in place compared to another organization that does not have, there is about 25 to 30% reduction in absenteeism. The company that has that kind of initiative compared to those that do not have. So we have several evidence-based example in that regard. So those are examples I can share with us, for now, that I think can enhance a child's ability to achieve their organizational goal. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll still come back to you very shortly, Professor Adeyinka Adeniran, but let me swiftly move over to Barrister. Barrister Emmanuel, I would just like to ask you two questions in one. Now, in what ways does your profession, the legal profession, in what ways does it contribute and support some initiatives and activities of HR? For example, fair and accurate performance evaluation process. Another example, designing effective reward and recognition systems. What insights can we pick from law, and how can we do it right and not be biased, if I can add that? Thank you, sir.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Dr. Adeosun. The element of bias that you closed with was what I already intended to open with, because many times performance and pay are many times affected by the biases of those who are supposed to affect them. So for instance, you would have situations where someone just prefers a candidate, or an employee to another employee, not for reasons of whether one is outperforming the other, but just pure bias, right? Now, and then sometimes you have organizations where even people in this who are ordinarily supposed to be maybe in the same pay grade, or a particularly pay grade, where pay grade systems are used, you would find situations where even in that pay grade, you would have people earning notches higher than some others, even when there is no notch system within that organization. You just have a situation where maybe somebody has decided that, oh, I just like this person and I want this person to earn more than, all others, or maybe this person attends my church, so I'm going to ensure that he has higher pay so that he can pay higher tithes and all of those kinds of things. But what has the legal profession done, to curb things like this? You have provisions like the provision in the termination of employment convention, for example, where when it comes to performance management, it is a must that before you terminate any person's employment on grounds of poor performance, you must design a clear policy or a clear performance improvement plan for that person, which you yourself must monitor, right, before you can decide that the person should be terminated. So because many times people just draft letters where they said someone is terminated because their performance was subpar. Now, there is no evidence to show that that person's performance was subpar. When you look at the work deliverables or the person's job description and the work output that the person has, you find out that there is nothing, significantly bad that this person is doing. Um, Unlike their contemporaries at work, you would find that in some cases the person is even doing better than some other person that is not being complained about, right? But because the company itself has no clear roadmap for how performance would be measured, then you now start seeing things like victimization. A manager just picks on somebody and decides that, oh, you're not pleasing me, and then there is nothing the person can do that would make this manager appreciates this person's work, because that company then has a loophole because there is no performance management system in place. So what the law has done is to ensure that nobody is unfairly treated on the grounds of their performance without, performance metrics in place in the organization. And if any employee is to be terminated, then there must be a performance improvement plan so that the person has an opportunity to improve on that quote and unquote poor performance that you are complaining about. Then when it comes to designing effective reward and recognition systems, first and foremost, the Nigerian constitution is clear. Even though the provision is in a portion of the constitution, that's part 2, where we normally say it is non-justiciable. Non-justiciable in the sense that you cannot use it as a right. Um, but the constitution talks about equal pay for equal work, right? In part 2 of the constitution. Now, take away the part take away the fact that that part of the constitution is not enforceable. We still have the provisions of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which is domesticated, which also provides for equal work for equal pay for equal work, right? And then you have other protections like the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which specifically provides that you cannot pay a woman lesser than a man simply because she's a woman, right? So long as, and then beyond even pay, even for work distribution, you must give the woman work of equal value as much as you've given the man. So when you already have you know legal frameworks that make these things sacrosanct, you can't then give a woman equal work, right, of equal value with a man and then pay her less. So you then have adv- advancements that have gone ahead of us, right, through the years to say, look, you are going to pay the woman as much as you pay the man, provided that they are doing the same kind of work. So now, these are legal frameworks that, you can also look at even some of the social conventions like the ICCPR, that's the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. You also look at the ICESCR, that's the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Civil Rights. All of these conventions or covenants have also put in place provisions that are enforceable. And the reason why those provisions are enforceable in Nigeria is because of the provision of Section 254C of the Constitution. The Third Alteration Act of 2010 brought in the application of international labor standards, international best practices. So in your pay structure and in your pay design, for instance, you cannot just decide that you're going to do it haphazardly. Once you've chosen a system, whether you're using a pay grade system, whether you're using a pay range system, you're going to have to design that policy in such a way that nobody is shortchanged. So really, this is what and I know that sometimes nobody knows that it is lawyers that do these things, because I know everybody says lawyers are liars, but lawyers have actually done some really nice things for you guys, right? And especially the one that I'm now talking about now, relating to how pay designs are actually rooted in policy issues which are further rooted in law, right? So you cannot actually take out law and HR are actually intertwined in such a way that even if HR people don't want to acknowledge it, which they do many times, um, law has actually played a huge role in, your performance evaluation, in things like, designing your pay and recognitions. Else you have things like discrimination, where, you just have someone who, because maybe they're from a particular part of the country, they are paid higher than other people. So you already have anti-discrimination, laws that have to be in your policy to ensure that, I feel like you guys should clap for lawyers. We have tried. Dr. Adeosun, over to you.
Yeah, try. But before I let you go,
Yes.
in 30 seconds quickly,
Yes.
since we are talking about, recognition, rewards, and performance, do you want to just highlight very briefly the issue of confirmation, where, for example, somebody is supposed to be confirmed in 6 months, the person, in quotes, is not confirmed, no letter of deferment
Confirmation.
is,
Yeah. Extension.
just
Yes.
very quickly, just to show and what the position of the law is.
So the position of the law, in fact, there was a decision of the National Industrial Court in 2024 that said that extension of probation is not contemplated under Nigerian law. So what they mean by that is you cannot just, so because what people do is that if, for instance, there are benefits that are attached to the confirmation of employment, they just keep extending, and many times there is no written document to confirm that extension. Now, what the law says is this: if you do not extend by a written document, that confirmation that ought to have happened within 6 months will be deemed to have happened. So you cannot extend, confirmation by word of mouth if you don't put it in writing. Now, even if you put it in writing, the law still says that it cannot be in perpetuity. You cannot keep extending forever. So there has to be a timeline where that extension would cease finally, and you have to make a decision as to whether or not that employee is confirmed. The reason that is done is because there are certain rights and privileges that employee would not enjoy, especially certain provisions of relevant international labor standards, which exclude unconfirmed employees from their application. So the law would not allow you to deny that employee of those rights by perpetual extension. So once you fail to inform the employee of an initial, and you cannot extend for longer than the confirmation period itself. So if the confirmation period is 6 months, you cannot do a 6-month extension where you have now kept the employee in limbo for 1 year and he's not sure, and his BP keeps rising, and they keep giving Professor Adeniro problems to treat, because you've just refused to confirm this employee. So the way it works is confirm them in 6 months, give them a written notification of their confirmation. If you fail to give them that written notification, the law will deem them as confirmed, and they will enjoy every benefit that confirmed employees enjoy.
Thank you so much. And because you have looped Professor Adeniro, I'll quickly go back to him in a jiffy. Dr. Adeniro, please. Now, especially from medicine, okay, what insights from your field can help HR improve collaboration, alignment across different departments and functions in the organization? I know medical people need to collaborate a lot. You have multiple stakeholders just like us in HR.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you once again. And of course, like Barista said, if we do the right things properly and we treat our people well, according to the law, they are in the right frame of mind, so they will not be snapping at one another. They will be able to work together better. But from medical perspective, some of the ways I think we can help HR improve collaboration is through something like as simple as health club. Okay, so if we have like a gathering within the organization where people come together, interact, so I would say interact like a social, I mean, for example, in Lassus, I will keep using Lassus as an example. So we have in our lounge, for example, so we go there, we interact, we socialize. So those kind of things will improve your mental health, and it will also improve collaboration. There we talk, we see other people from other departments, we discuss, so what is happening in your field now, how can we collaborate, how can we work, what are you working on, what am I working on? So we have that outside of work, because again, when people are locked up in their offices, in their units, they only see people around them and everything is around work. Okay, so you can't birth ideas, you can't birth innovations in that kind of environment. So you need a free environment where you can interact properly, and then that's what we actually foster better collaboration. So that's within the organization. Now, medical profession, how can we help? So wellness programs also bring people together. Health Week also bring people together. Those are supports that medical practice can provide to help people collaborate more. I'm just looking at people working in their different units. They are locked up there. You don't want them to stay there. You want them to come out. You want them to interact better. And I think the health initiative, health clubs, wellness programs will bring people together. Health weeks, for example. Okay, so you have a health week, bring people together, bring them from their offices, let them interact better. It will improve their mental wellness. It will improve their social health. Okay, and that way they will be able to collaborate. They will be able to, they are friends. When you work with your friends, you collaborate better, you align better, to organizational goal. I think those are some of the ways by which medical profession can support collaboration within the workplace.
Thank you so much. Before I move over to Mrs. Alimat Raji, just a very quick one. Again, I like going off the script. That's me. Don't trust me when you make me the moderator. I have a lot of Gen Z in the workplace, a lot of Gen Z, and they are quick to say mental health, mental health. Please, can you explain to us, and do some of our senior daddies and mommies in Kwara, do they also have mental health? Or is this concerns, does it affect only Gen Z alone? Just 1 or 2 minutes, sir.
Yeah, mental health is no respecter of persons. Sometimes you think, it's only married people that are having mental health problems because of drugs and all of that. That's not correct. I mean, the younger people, you mentioned Gen Zs now, they are even afraid to get married now because they are thinking that that's a scam, that adulthood is scam, something like that. So mental health issues are no respecter of persons. The elderly, the younger group, male, female, cut across. Even though there are a lot of risk factors, especially when you are coming up, you are just growing up, okay? So you are building resilience. So you are faced with a lot of issues that you are not really comfortable with. Okay, so you tend to succumb because you have not really built resilience like the adults. So we have quite a lot of adolescents, especially the Gen Zs, facing that crisis, because they are not built the way some of us were built, So and we have a crisis in our hands, and that's part of what even some of our colleagues in the behavioral medicine department are trying to handle, so that we go to schools and we help them realize that the world is not like they think it is, okay? So, and help them build resilience, see the world in the right perspective and all of that, because it boils down to resilience. It boils down to how you view the world and how you view things. So yes, we have a crisis at that level, among the younger age group, but it's something that is widespread and it's not a respect of person. So everybody, both young, old, married, single, should pay attention. I mean, rich, poor, sometimes you think it's just among the poor people. It's money that is causing it. No. So it's a medical issue and you have to pay attention to it.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for allowing me drag you to my corner. I'll quickly go to Mrs. Halimat Raji. Can you share with us what are perhaps some emerging trends in your profession, accounting and allied courses, and how can it help HR adapt better to the changing workplace? You have the floor, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Looking at the emerging trends, in the next 5 years to 10 years, the role of accounting is going to change. What accounting looks like is going to change, and who the accountant will be. You already mentioned the Gen Z, but the Alpha Gen, in 3 years' time, they will also be entering the workplace. Those are the ones that were born in 2010 to 2024. The Alpha generation, they are those that grew, they grew up on social media using gadgets, and it's they will be entering the workplace in about 3 to 5 years time. So the talent pipeline, for accountants is changing, and also the way accountants work is also changing. It's already here. So I currently work with TD Bank, and in the finance operations unit. It was a unit that was set up in 2019 to change the way accountants and accounting work is done. It's a digital transformation initiative. So the objective was to do a lot of automation for standardized processes. And so what it means is that we have a lot of tools that we use to, perform our task. I remember when I was in Total, we do a lot of extraction from the ERP, take it to Excel and do data transformation. I can work on a file for maybe 2 hours and, just transforming the data and put it in a shape, that will help me do my analysis and, submit my report. But right now we have a lot of tools that, do all that for us. And that means we have less time to do repetitive tasks and, just to be focused on the analytical work. And sometimes when I look at the work I do, liaising with different lines of businesses, internal audit, external audit, it's not about whether my numbers are correct. It's more about, the technology that, we are using to generate, the numbers, reconciliation between 2 platforms, moving data from one platform to another platform. And, it's more like tech savvy accounting, these days. It's not just about the debit and the credit. It's about the platform that you're using to produce your numbers, and the integrity of, the data that is coming out from those platforms. So right now, so the impact of that for HR is, talent pipeline. It might take a while for universities to, to design talent or to develop talent that will be workplace ready. Because I believe that, I don't know what the curriculum is like these days, but, it's just a 101 that we did back then: cost accounting, management accounting, financial accounting. The workplace is more than that. So it will now involve, HR working directly with those schools and ensuring that, universities are, maybe aware of what their future needs will be. So it might involve like working with clubs and societies in these universities, working with the, working with the faculties to ensure that, the curriculum is updated so that when the students are, graduating, they are available and, they are able to, start the work from day one. And like I said, it's the role of accounting is more of analytical these days rather than just number crunching. And so that means we need accountants who are analysts right from day one, not just knowing, the technical part, but being able to communicate the story behind the numbers and right from day one. So in terms of recruitment, it's going to impact recruitment. In terms of onboarding session, there might need to be like training, maybe like short-term training or 3 months training, to ensure that employees that are joining the organization, know what they are coming to do, and they will be able to add value right from day one. So AI is also another emerging trend, artificial intelligence. There's a lot of push from management for everyday use of AI to generate insights, and it makes work easier. But then there are still some risk around AI generating false information. But being able to use AI to improve the quality of your output is something that it's already here. We're already seeing it. And it's, organizations that, have the budget that have started implementing it. But with time, these technologies and these platforms will become cheaper and it will become more pervasive around the world. And so it's going to, change the way we work and, what we do on a daily basis. So in 5 years' time, the talent pool of accountants will change, and the everyday work of accountants will also change.
And by extension, HR must change.
Yes, HR must adapt to those changes.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, I would very much like to have us ask questions, either for my distinguished, respected daddies, mommies, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunties in the auditorium, right there, GRA Ilorin. That will be my first go-to. And then, of course, my family members who are virtual like me. If you are virtual, you need to please raise your hands. And if you are speaking from the auditorium, based on the facility available, it may be better if you, for example, move towards where the mic is so that our panelists can hear you loud and clear. While I anticipate interest to either ask questions or either chime in, contribute to this discourse that has been ongoing, I have one final off-the-cuff question for Barrister Emmanuel Abraye. In the last few days, we've been inundated with QAM 1 and QAM 2. If you don't get it, forget about it. What lessons do you think HR can pick from all these scenarios? What are a few insights? Of course, again, we say that we listen, we don't judge. So we are not judging anybody. They are all good people. We forgive you, everybody, Baristas, just so you know, maybe I'll come to your house, take like $2 million there, I'll write an apology. What happened to me? Over to you, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. So the QAM 1 and QAM 2 issues, you know, HR, one of the most important thing for HR practitioners is to understand that they are much as part of the business as any other function, even if HR in some organizations might not be on the organizational structure as a core function of the business and maybe just listed as support function. That notwithstanding, HR actually has very vital roles to play even beyond the internal systems that they work, right? I know that HR might not necessarily be customer facing, especially because they really deal with the people that the business has employed. But then it is also HR's, it is within HR's purview to ensure that its own people are trained um, as much as possible for scenarios like the QAM 1 and QAM 2 issue that happened, right? I'm actually not yet very familiar with what happened with the QAM 2 issue. I'm very familiar with the QAM 1 issue because I've been resting, so I've been somehow off social media. But just to just to look at it from from an internal lens, I think that, you know, the pilot in the Quam 1 issue, ought to, because the Civil Aviation Act places a burden on the pilot to ensure that within that um period they are operating the aircraft, they do not cause any harm to people on ground, while within the aerodrome while they are operating the aircraft. So even if the person was out of your sight, you needed to have ensured that they were out of harm's way before taxing, right? So it's all a learning and development issue as far as I'm concerned for HR practitioners to ensure that, of course, you cannot create all the learnings for future incidents, but at least as far as LFIs are concerned, learning from incidents, you must make sure that, looking at what has happened, even if it's not your industry, you want to see how you can train your employees for scenarios like this. So there would always be things that will happen that are not within what you've trained your organization and what you've trained your staff for, right? But you can always, be forward thinking to look at what, because nobody really expected that something like that would happen, right? And of course, the environment we live in, there's a lot of do you know who I am that's thrown, all around, and you never can tell what do you know who I am would mean in your own organization. In this particular case, the first case, he wasn't expected to come on board with alcohol, right? And then he came with a flask, and then they needed to know what the content of the flask was, and then do you know who I am was the response that was given. So you don't know what will be coming to your own organization. Maybe you'll be the Quam 3 or the Quam 4, but you have to train your staff for whatever Quams will be coming in the future. And I think that learnings also have to be designed not just for the very things that your core business is handling, but you can also train your employees for things that are incidental to those to the business as well. You know, so for instance, I don't want to mention any airline, would not, I doubt that they would ever have thought that a Quam 1 and Quam 2 event would occur. Yes, they have their squabbles with passengers, but in the Quam 1 event, I don't think they would have ever thought that someone would literally try to stop a plane and stand in front of, and thankfully for him, he docked, and if not, the wingspan of the plane would have, caused him some serious damage. So start watching out for the qualms. We are expecting to see 3, 4, 5. Only God knows when it will stop. But train your people for whatever the qualms would be. I think that'll just be my contribution to that. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you so
Joshua.
much, Barrister Emmanuel Abrai. On behalf of the HR practitioners in Nigeria, I can assure you no qualms. We are up to the task. Right now, next is questions, contributions, and comments. Ladies and gentlemen, please, it's our time to contribute, either by asking questions or by sharing thoughts. I'll need your support. My branch chair, Ajia Azizat, please. They must talk. It's by fire, by force. Kwabs is my uncle. If una no talk, I will go call am to the auditorium. You must say something. Also, for our colleagues online, if you have a question or a comment, if you please do raise your hands, or if you now want to type your question. So I see a question or a comment here. So I'll read it from my colleague here, Aziz Abolani, ACIPM. And I'm reading Aziz's thoughts here. It says, my organization provides employee assistance program
Okay, I don't know if it's just me, or Mr. Adeosun. Network is
I think
His
it's
network
happening.
has problem. He's trying to join back. I
okay.
can see him trying
Okay.
to join back.
Okay. Let me just check if he has joined. So just a minute, everyone. I believe once he joins back, we'll be able to take it from there. Although he had previously asked that I step in for him if network takes him out at any period in time. But I think he was trying to read a comment. I don't think that was a question. It was a contribution. The person said, my organization provides employee assistance program where counselors are available on one-on-one basis to address mental health issues or other challenges that may impact employee performance. I think that's a very good one. But then we can then go to the floor in the line for questions, if there's any. And then anyone who has questions can. Um. Okay. Okay. You can't speak. Okay, I can see that. Let me try to unmute. Okay, can you try to unmute now? I have Okay, I can see Aziz Abolari with his hands raised. You can ask your question, please.
Can you enable unmute for Bolari?
Yes, I've done that. He can then unmute himself and speak.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
I was the one that posted that contribution in the chat box,
Oh,
and
great.
just like after sharing that, I got an email from the employee assistance program, and they were saying that as part of their program, they provide music and to help individual employee that might be going through some stressful situation. And this is what they said: music and mood boosting, stress relief, enhances creativity, encourages relaxation, and improves sleep quality, emotional connections, social connections. Just like when we're on this, that's what was shared, so that people, staff members who go through this can avail themselves of this opportunity. I just want to chip in that. It was like a coincidence.
Oh, wow,
Thank you very much. So we can speak from here now. We want to thank Mr. Emmanuel, Mr. Iman, and Professor Ademiran for that fantastic contribution. Thank you so much. So we have questions from here. Alaji, David Raji, and Mrs. Adeyeye. So Alaji, speak on it. Can I speak on like this? Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. Just to let you know that Mr. Adeosun is now back online, so he'll take it from here.
And let me just quickly add. Excuse me, sorry to Baji. Let me just quickly add before we leave that Mr. Aziz Abolari is from New York HR. He's speaking from New York HR. So that we don't start expecting University of Ilorin to give you music, that kind of thing. So we just wanted to put that in context. He's speaking from he's speaking as the director of in the New York HR.
Well, I mean, nothing is impossible. I mean,
Exactly, but just to put it in context.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Adeosun, over to you now, please.
Yes, please. So I'd like to be updated. We are taking questions and contributions.
Yes. So we're taking questions from the floor in
Yes, and contributions, thoughts.
Yes.
What about contributions? Contributions.
We have one question from here.
Okay, they can go ahead one after the other, please.
Good evening, panelists. And I listened to you people. From the accountants have not really spoken to us how organization will handle contingencies and emergencies. She was talking of budgets. By the way, she's my proud namesake. I'm Muhammad Raji, is Halima Raji. So, and how do, as human resource practitioners, some issues crop up on plan. We are just mentioned from 1.2. Actually, there's actually a requirement. The NYC something which they have not resolved the whether to do these are issues that crop up. And medical emergency can arise. We have had a situation where we tested our drivers and found out that 50% have problems of eyes which we did not know. So they have to go for emergency treatments. And now we now see that things happen, you have to retrain your staff on emergency. You have to reevaluate your pilots. How to tell your lecturer somebody drink and collapse. Now to give them emergency trainings. So these things may not be in the budget. When human resources will come, they are urgent things that have to be addressed. How do accountants help us to enable us achieve our goals?
Okay.
My second question, no.
Second question.
Let's Halima quickly respond to the first question, please.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so like during this budget process and the strategic process, these are some of the things that are considered. And using the example of medical emergency that you mentioned, and this is why sometimes the company will rather use health insurance company for risk mitigation strategies. So we know that, okay, once we pay this, once we incur this cost, this is going to be a fixed cost. It's not going to increase, it's not going to decrease. Any emergency that happens, the health insurance, organization will take care of it. So we know that there are situations that, emergencies, can occur, and, the leadership will come up with strategies to mitigate it. So we, they anticipate, situations like this. So what can we do? We cannot reasonably estimate, the amounts that will be incurred for emergencies. But we know that when we work with health insurance companies, any emergencies are covered in the health policy, and we know that our employees will be covered in such instances. Okay, so aside that, there are still situations where we need to incur some costs which have not been budgeted for. Usually there are allowances in the budget for exigencies like this, maybe 5%, 10%. We also work with our HR partners to see where they've over budgeted for, and we can move funds within the budget line, depending on how. I know government organizations have different policies around budget aids and how to move funds around. But for private organizations, you can look at where you have under or you have over. Either way, once management agrees that this is an emergency situation, this is an expense that needs to be incurred, approval will need to be given. And of course, there is always a reason. Budgets they are not how will I call it? It's not written on stone. There is always over and under accrual. So that's why at the end of every month we do variance analysis. There are instances where we have over, we go over the budget or we come under the budget, and give or take, it should still keep us within the budgeted margin and profit that the organization is set to achieve. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Very robust response to a very robust question. Let's quickly take the second question or contribution.
Thank you very much. Panel of yes, my question.
Can you hear us?
We are struggling.
Yes.
Any bones, okay?
Good evening. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes. I'm asking the question. I'm making a reference to an education institution that sends some of its staff on study leave with pay and fully bonded And after the completion of the program, when they are to resume back, these people fail to resume. And the next thing, when they were written a letter to resume back to the office, these people tender a resignation letter. What is the decision of law?
Very good question. Barrister Emmanuel Abraye, the question is around bond and bonding, specifically to tertiary institution, most likely government, because I'm aware there was a case in Lagos like that with LASU. I think they even had to publish names or something like that. So what will require your response to that question? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adesho. And I'm very happy to hear someone ask these questions, because questions relating to bond is usually from the flip side, right? Employees trying to see how smart they can be and to wriggle their way out of bonds. But it's good to hear a question around what the employers can do in situations like this. So the first thing goes to the training bond itself. What kind of bond have you designed, right? Now, you want to be careful in preparing your bonds to ensure that it is not just something you've designed as an EVP. That's your employee value proposition, which any employee can take as some kind of benefits that they earned, right? But if you designed your bond in such a way that it is clearly a training bond for which the employee is required to perform certain obligations or to stay within the employment of the employer for a particular duration of time, then that employee bond would be binding and you can actually effect it. In fact, it's even better if the institution in question is a government institution, because it can then be treated through a diplomatic route for the employee. Because I mean, I don't know the full facts of what you're talking about, but I know that in many instances, employees will be sent via training bonds and then they just disappear. In fact, some of them are not even sent on bonds, but they are sent for some form of training with the requirement that when they return, they would, effect the training within their teams and all of that, and then they just disappear and jackba. That's one of the instances where an employee can, perpetrate an unfair labor practice on their employer, right? So when you have bonded an employee for a particular training and they fail to return, you can actually then begin legal processes against them. One of the processes you can begin is to write, especially if it's a government institution, you can take advantage of diplomatic channels to inform the government of the country where they are that they have now gone AWOL, so that they can find them and repatriate them back to Nigeria. And I think it is really sad that people do these kinds of things and then they try to shortchange, the government. So this is not even a naming and shaming issue. It is an issue that should be taken seriously. Have them, sent back to the country and then face the consequences of what they have done. It might seem a little bit harsh, but you can imagine what it would be if, because of a few bad eggs, no other person can be trained and the organization is stunted because they cannot then, continue to take on a practice that would not have any good returns for the institution, right? So the best thing to do in this particular instance is, if it's clear that those people run away, then take on, redressed via diplomatic channels to have them sent back to Nigeria and then, face the consequences for their actions. I just hope that answers the question.
Okay, third question.
Thank you so much, Barrister Abraye. I like that exploring diplomatic opportunities. Again, sometimes we are gentle people. We like forgiving. Don't affect the person's career. To bá jábúrò ẹ̀ náà, you will be putting sentiments. And you sign the bond so that you can come and serve for a specific number of years. But you insist on going to join Alaja Alimat in Toronto.
Just to add, you mentioned about forgiveness. At the budget, formulation phase, you've already estimated that, okay, we're going to incur this cost with the hope that when those, personnel come back, they will contribute, in like maybe 2 years to the revenue of the organization. Now you're going to forgive them. What is going to happen to that revenue in the future? So it's your future budget might be very difficult to, to justify and defend with management. So you must ensure that you follow all the legal process to ensure that at least you recover the fund. I know there are bonds that, will give you an exit clause. If you're not coming back, you have to pay a certain amount to get out of the bond. So at least recover the funds back. Once you recover the fund, management will be happy that they have their money. Although that will also extend, the time it will take them to have, that expertise in-house for future revenue flow. That's my contribution.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's go to the third question, please. I'm enjoying these questions. Barrister Emmanuel, you see why in your next life you should come to University of Ilorin?
I should. I should come to University of Ilorin, definitely.
Or at least come and live in Fati or Tanke. Or
no problem.
The panelists and our moderator, they are pleased to share of their experiences this talk that everybody is at. I want to believe that the work of HR is to harness various ideas taken from diverse professionals to design a future-looking policy for an organization in the area of talent hiring, talent management, cost, the reward system, and so on and so forth, so that the organization goal can be achieved. In other words, what we are saying is that the success of the organization now depends on ideas that are taken from various professionals, which are harnessed by HR professionals. However, the HR professional feels a critical concern with the arbitrariness on the part of a toxic manager, which can dissolve can be counterproductive to the organization objective. I don't know, especially our government, if there's any way by which to share insight to how an HR man can probably manage or navigate such attitude from a toxic manager or toxic leader to affect what negative consequences for the organization. I don't know if my question is clear.
It's clear. It's clear. Very clear. Thank you for the question. So it's asking around toxicity, especially from management, senior staff, and how to mitigate against it.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much for that question. First, I'll start by letting you know that one of the most important things an employee can do is to study their HR manual or their employee handbook or their code of conduct manual or the civil service rules of their organization, depending on whether or not you are in private or public employment. Now, the reason I say that is because many of these documents provide for what they call grievance escalations, right? And when you have a toxic manager, and again, I always try to be very careful when people bring questions relating to toxicity to me, because sometimes toxicity is so defined because of a particular person's perspective, when in fact the fact of what is happening may not necessarily be toxicity, right? So it is very important that that is taken out of the way. Of course, you have your grievance mechanism within your organization, and it is important for you to follow through on your grievance mechanisms, right? Now, and I'll be very real with you because I've handled quite a number of cases where, even in trying to address toxicity, employees eventually lose their jobs. right? And then it looks like as if, oh, they should not have bothered about addressing the toxicity. They should have just kept quiet, suffer through it and then retire and go home, right? But then it is always best for you to follow through with your grievance mechanism within your relevant policies. And the law has several, frameworks it has designed to protect you, right? And because I'm speaking to HR people, I'll just lay it out. So you have a toxic boss, you have a grievance mechanism within your organization that allows you to report that person, that manager, either via a whistle blowing tool or via a direct report to the relevant investigators within your teams, or the relevant HR persons responsible for discipline and instituting the relevant programs to ensure that such things are addressed. So now you raise a grievance. After you have raised a grievance, there is that possibility that that manager you've raised a grievance against would retaliate, especially when that manager, the toxic manager you've defined, is powerful enough to control all the incidences around the reports that you have made, right? All of those things are facts to note, because sometimes you have to be sure of the consequences of the action you're taking, and unfortunately it leads to termination sometimes, and that would even be midwifed by the toxic manager you're trying to report, right? Now, when you have done that and it leads to unfair consequences to you, you can then ensure that you take note of every single thing happening, because you're eventually going to have to head to either your disciplinary committee in your company, or you're going to eventually have to head to court because of what is happening. Now, you can be sure that there are several decisions of court that have been held to protect employees who find themselves in those kinds of situations, right? So, for instance, there's a decision of the National Industrial Court where it was held that once an employee has either raised a grievance or has testified against somebody who exercises discretion towards them regarding their performance, regarding whether or not they get to stay within the company itself has an obligation to ensure that they remove that employee from under the supervision of that manager, or from within a span where that manager can exercise negative discretions towards them, right? So there is that protection that you get to enjoy. But then again, until things escalate and get to court, nobody knows the extent to which the toxic manager can, And then again, beyond the toxicity, right? Sometimes you just need to understand the culture of your organization, right? And, there's what they call office politics. It's unfortunate that sometimes the politics within some office spaces is quite terrible. But the truth of the matter is that where there are two human beings coexisting together, there will definitely be some form of politics or the other. So you would also then have to learn to play it the way it needs to be played, unfortunately. But that's just really how, these things happen, so that you put yourself in a position where, you don't have the short end of the stick, right? So beyond your grievous beyond everything I've said, what is most sacrosanct is your grievance mechanisms within your organization is the surest bet you have to deal with toxicity. Now, depending on the seniority of that person, you might not get what you want, but ultimately you would get it if you choose to follow the entire grievance mechanism, which would eventually lead you to the law courts. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's really how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks for the appropriate round of applause. We'd like to take the final question before we hand over to our chair, Madam Azizat. Final question or comments, please, from the floor.
Okay, thank you, everyone. My questions are very straightforward. The first question I have here is that confirmation after a probation period without an increment in the pay as agreed during the period of employment, is the confirmation valid? Then secondly, we have a situation whereby employees are not, it's not legal for an employee to terminate anyone without a notice period or a payment in lieu. What if, in the turn of the employees, they are the one leaving without notice? How does the employer penalize them for that?
Hope you got the questions.
Yes, we got the question. Yes, I got the question.
Especially in an organization that make payments, let's say 23rd, 24th of the month. So they just wait till that 24th, then they disappear without notice, no handling over or anything. How do they get penalized?
All right, thank you very, very much. And your question is very important, and I really, your questions rather are very important. So the first question you've asked about confirmation when it is done, when it's supposed to be with increment in pay, and the increment in pay is not done, is the confirmation valid? So my answer to that is you won't throw away the baby with the bathwater, because you're the one enjoying the confirmation. The fact of the confirmation having been done is valid, right? So the other issue is the increment in pay. Now the question is, did they tell you by word of mouth that upon confirmation your pay will be increased, or was it written in the contract? If it was written in the contract, it's an enforceable right, right? If it was just word of mouth, then there are two things to it. The first is that an established practice in the company? If it's an established practice in the company, there is what we employment lawyers call legitimate expectation or expectation interest. The principle of legitimate expectation and expectation interest is that if there is a practice that is so entrenched in the company that all employees now look forward to it being done, it is now a contractual requirement that must be fulfilled by the employer, right? If it is just that someone told you by word of mouth and you didn't tell them to put it in writing, and there is no established practice within the company that makes it important for that increment to be made to you, then there is a problem. The reason why there is a problem is that if the employment was just oral, right, and the promise of an increment was also oral, then you can enforce an oral contract. It's clear. You can always enforce an oral contract. If you have a recording of that promise being made, of course, that then means that that oral contract has now been recorded in a permanent form, which you can play to prove your assertions as correct. But where there is nothing else apart from what was said by word of mouth, the problem now becomes that that written contract cannot be amended by your words, by anybody's words. What is written can only be amended by another thing that is written that also expresses itself as superseding the previous written contract, right? But if it is just word of mouth, then this is one of those periods where I would now be singing Lagbaja's song, Mo sorry fún gbogbo yín o, Mo sorry fún gbogbo yín. Or this other worship song that they normally sing, Kasongo, yeah, yeah. I'll just be singing those kind of songs because unfortunately there will be nothing that can actually be done for you. Now let's move to your second question. You're asking, what can be done to an employee who leaves without giving notice? It goes down to your contract. What did you state in your contract, right? Now, I must let you know that the Labour Act has its own provisions for notice periods, right? But then you must understand that the Labour Act applies only to manual laborers and clerical workers, right? Section 91 of the Labour Act excludes people who are doing professional, technical, managerial work, right? So basically your senior and lower cadre employees, right? So the Labour Act has a limited scope, and it applies basically to, manual laborers and clerical staff, right? Now, if the employee that is in question is not an employee that's bound by the provisions of the Labour Act, right? And your contract has said he has to give a particular notice period, then it is important that that employee gives that notice period, or he makes a payment in lieu of that notice. If he waits to receive payment and then runs away, you have every right to recover that salary he should have paid in lieu of notice, right? And the way to recover it is not to go and report them to police and turn a civil matter into a criminal matter. No, you just simply write a demand letter. If they don't honor it, you then have to do your investigations to know where they have gone to. If it's another company they have gone to, you can then write to that company. And don't forget, you still have a very powerful weapon in your hand, your post-termination letters. That's your recommendation letters after, or certification of service. Now, it is not to say that you would not issue it, but you, because the law governing, oh my name is, there's too many laws in my head. The law governing recommendation letters is that that letter must be a true and accurate representation of the circumstances of that employee's service with you. You cannot pad anything, you cannot sugarcoat anything, right? It has to be exactly what it was. So right there in that recommendation letter that is asking for, you can either ask him, I should write that you did not pay your 1 month salary in lieu of notice, or you want to give me before I write this. You understand? So it's not like they can just go scot-free. Of course, you did your KYC when they were joining the organization. You have their address. You can always write to that address. You can then, I mean, if it's worth it, you can also file a claim against that employee to recover that money. And I can tell you for a fact, right? Unfair labor practices, as we know, this is one of those things that would be an unfair labor practice that the employee is perpetrating against the employer. And when an employee has done something so grievous that would require the court to slam that employee with severe damages, I can assure you that the court will do it, right? So long as the employee did not, go away for some other reasons that can be construed as quiet quitting, or there's this other word that is running away from my head now, constructive dismissal. You can always make a claim against that employee to recover that money back, as well as the cost of the litigation to recover the money and the damages flowing from that litigation. And I'll tell you why it's important to do that. There's a lot of times, Dr. Adeosun was talking about, we always clamoring for forgiveness, let's just forgive them. They are our children. That's also a legitimate expectation you are creating, to where you have processes that are so lax that employees know that they can do anything and go scot-free. But when you take one, it only takes one employee. You make an example out of that employee to let the rest of the employees know that they cannot just take such actions and go scot-free. Else you have a situation where people will wait for 24th when salary will be paid, collect salary. Some of them will not even submit the resignation letter. They'll write it and leave it on their decks and put a flower pot on top of it for you to come and see. And then people will now start, creating funny things, that will even exasperate you as HR. So your legal team, in collaboration with HR, this is also one of the situations where legal helps HR, will then take it up and ensure that the right thing is done to recover the money, so that others can learn, and know that this is not something to be done. I just hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Yes, it did, sir, but I have one more, please.
Okay, so this will be the final question from the panelists' perspective. We can continue the conversation in-house. Please go ahead with your final question, please.
Yes, thank you. I want to ask if it is legal for a notice period to be more than 2 weeks during the probation time.
2 weeks.
That's a contractual thing. It's contractual. It depends on your contract. Whatever you put in your contract, it can be 2 weeks, it can be 1 week, it can be 1 month. Whatever you say in your contract is what becomes sacrosanct. So it's a contractual period. It doesn't matter whether it's during probation period or not. Even if during probation period you say it's 1 month, it's 1 month. You're the one who is going to pay for the 1 month anyway. If you say they should give you notice, you can even say they should give you notice for 3 months. You're the one who will pay them for 3 months while their probation period is running. So it's a contractual thing. Whatever the contract says, so long as it's not an employee that's bound by the provisions of the Labor Act has a gradation: 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, like that. So it's up to you to put it in the contract the way you want it.
Let me just also quickly add that the probation notice period must be mutual. What do I mean? Because I see some aberration. You will say if the employee is resigning, he must give 1 month notice or 2 months notice. But if the organization wants to let you go, they will give 1 week. It must be mutual. Otherwise, it will look biased. All right. So we'll take closing comments from only 2 people. My lord has spoken too much. Forgive me, my lord, if me to have spoken too much by saying you've spoken too much, even though you have spoken well. Quickly, closing remarks, Dr. Professor Adeyinka Aderino. Then I'll go to our Alaja. We started with you, we are ending with you, Alaja. Let me see if Prof can unmute. Yes, Prof, you can unmute now.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So thank you. I'm sorry, I had to change my device. Thank you so much once again, everyone. Good afternoon. My closing remark would be that health is wealth. Okay, the health of your workers is your greatest asset. And as HR professionals, we should not take it lightly. You know, sometimes you don't value what you have until you lose it. You know, so that's usually what happens when it comes to health. You know, we just take our health for granted. But when something goes wrong, that's when we now start panicking, and that's when we now start taking action. And sometimes, unfortunately, it might be too late. So that's on one part. And then on the other part, when you have used the useful part of your employee's life, and then they now retire, and then because of we have not really paid attention to their health during those periods of time, they cannot start, they cannot now sit and start eating the fruit of their labor. So of course they will never forgive and forget whatever you have done to them in that regard. So we should pay attention to those minor things. You know, not everything that counts can be counted. And not everything that can be counted counts. So health is one of those things that you cannot count that really is, it's really very, very important. And to most organizations, they treat it as an expense. But there is a way we justify that health is an investment, you know, and HR people must learn how to do that so that our accountant professionals will not start asking too much questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Adeyinka Adeniro. I'll quickly call on Mrs. Alima Turaji. Afterwards, we'll hand over control to Mr. Fatai Olalekan Salahuddin, our treasurer, for the vote of thanks, and subsequently our amiable vice chairman, Mrs. Toyin Olaniyi. So this may be the last time you hear my voice. Mrs. Alima Turaji, our accountant, please, I hope you will send prayers to our email. We need more money. Over to you, ma'am, for your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. My closing remark will be that, HR and, accounting and finance have a lot in common. We are both, support partners to the core business areas, and we need to do more of collaboration, that will drive achievement of the organizational goals, that will drive the organizational culture, that we want to see in our organization. And we need to really work hand in hand. We need to work together. My final comment will be that, HR partners, your best friend, if you want to achieve your HR, strategy and initiative, will be your finance business partner. So make them your best friend in the organization to help you achieve your divisional goals. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you very much. So on that note, we want to say that HR is the engine room, while finance is the oil of that engine. The oil of the engine, while is the engine. Thank you so much. So I'll call on our elder here to please give the vote of thanks. Our treasurer is not here present with us today. So we have Alhaji Abdulhamid Raji, is a fellow of the CIPM. So we are calling on him now to please give our vote of thanks. Please. Okay.
So, good evening, panelists. Good evening, Mrs. Panro. Before we want to thank God and to express our gratitude to the organization. Okay, please don't go yet. I'll take a group photograph. So we thank you.
Please don't go yet. Some minutes more. We're going to take
some few minutes more. So we thank all the panelists. So and to the participants, both virtual and physical, thank you for participating. So may God bless you all. So for ease of time, please let me.
We'll take a photograph now. So we all stand here while we back. Back the screen.
Okay, I'll start. She's taking. Are you taking it? No, you sent it to her. Okay, let me take it to her.
Dr. Adeosun, please put on your camera. Okay. Dr. Adeosun.
Yes, sir.
Please put on your camera. What they take a
So you just
photograph.
Thank you, sir. I've put it on, sir.
All right. Emmanuel.
Oh, no, just send it to her. Yeah.
I do so quickly.
I will say
No seem to like to know.
okay. All right, thank you very much.